My doctor sent that test off and said, okay, we need to do an MRI. We got to see how big this thing is. I suspect you have a tumor. We went to the MRI. We talked to the radiologist, and it's always a bad sign when the radiologist calls you into the room. So I walk into the room, and all of the films are up on the light boxes. She had circled a little mass. It wasn't little. It was about the size of a walnut. Whenever I felt pain, I said, it's just part of the disease process. I didn't get angry anymore. Why me? I didn't get anxious. Is it ever going to go away? This has been with me for a year. It's going to be with me until I'm healed. I don't know when that is. I was the kind of person, if I had 10 minutes, I'd be...
That's curiosity. What's the latest trend? 1 minute you're taping your mouth shut. The next you're supposed to sip a nightly glass of wine or swear it off. Egg yolks are the heroes, then they're the villains. Peptides, weighted vest, creatine for women, the noise never ends. So how do we know what actually works? I am Juliet Hahn, and this is Don't Die Curious. In every episode, I sit down with doctors, innovators, and everyday legends to separate the facts from the hype and uncover what really sharpens the mind, strengthens the body, and fuels the spirit. Stay curious. One good question can change your life forever. Welcome back to Don't Die Curious. This is Juliet Hahn with a very special guest, Dr. James Lee. How are you?
I am doing great, and it's fantastic to be here. I can't wait to have an awesome conversation. I've just been speaking with you before. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm really looking forward to this. So I do want to say that James is also an author, Unbroken, A Doctor's Journey Back to a Life Worth Living. And we're going to get into it. But Dr. Lee, I would love for you to kind of give a little bit of your background, your medical background, and then when your life turned upside down, we'll dive into that.
Sure. Very, very quickly, medicine, or at least the healthcare field, has always been been part of my life. Both of my parents are physicians, and growing up, dinner table conversation was just, diagnosis, prognosis. I mean, the conversations around dinner time were very interesting for me, especially since my dad was an OBGYN. So it was, it was always interesting, but my parents stressed academics, and ever since high school, I topped my SATs. I was, chemistry, physics, science, math were always my favorite subjects. And I got into Yale. I majored in molecular biophysics and biochemistry because that was the hardest major they had there. And I really loved everything science. And I had the best 4 years there. Went on to Stanford, got my medical degree there. And then I thought once I finished my training in anesthesia, that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. But, life threw me a couple curves this way.
Right. And one of the things, the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, Don't Die Curious, is I am a very curious person. I love stories, and I speak a lot about people that have accolades. I think it's wonderful, right? If school is something that is easy for you, not the easy, but that comes, it's one of your strengths, right? And my listeners know that I'm dyslexic. So school was always really hard for me. So as much as I'm like, oh, that's so cool. What a brilliant man. I love the brain. But what your story and where it took you and where your path was supposed to go is what fascinates me. And the reason why you wrote a book is why I want the listeners to hear your story. It's, again, you're a very, world-renowned anesthesiologist. You went to, as you said, Yale, Stanford. You could see that this is what was embedded in you, your parents, but that wasn't your trajectory. That wasn't what was supposed to be. And this is where I find things, this is where I get really curious. Like, okay, well, why was this supposed to happen? What lessons were you supposed to learn? What are you supposed to teach the rest of us? So can you take us through a little bit of that pivotal moment in your life that changed everything?
And I have to stress, I was a highly capable, highly functioning person. When I first finished training, the first hospital that I worked in for the first 2 years, I was voted Physician of the Year. And as an anesthesiologist, that's very difficult to do because you're really only in the ORs. I dealt with the OB staff because I did OB anesthesia as well. I put in epidurals for labor pains. So I only dealt with the OR and the OB section of the hospitals. But even then, my reputation was highly regarded. I was affable. I was capable. I was on time. You name it. Every characteristic I tried to be the best I could. And I won Physician of the Year. I wasn't vying for it, but that's just, it was given to me. So I just assumed that's the rest of my life. I'm this golden child anesthesiologist, But no, I'll fast forward. I'd been working about 7 years at the same hospital. They advanced me. They made sure I was happy. They took me into the group. I was a full partner. 7 years into it, I was actually dealing with an OR case. It was a cystoscopy. The surgeon that I had worked with for 7 years, I knew his cases, so I knew it was only going to be 20 minutes long if everything went well. So I prepared my anesthesia for this patient to be fast on, fast off. I was ready. And about 5 minutes before we were done with the procedure, the surgeon asks, with every cystoscopy, we have to make sure that the ureter's okay. So there's a specific medication that we give, methylene blue. And I had done so many cases, I knew exactly what he was going to ask for before he even asked it. And I reached for my cart, and I pull on the drawer, and I and I looked down. All I did was shift my head in a downward position, and I felt a pop behind my left eye. And I thought, that's strange. That's like a little pea, like just if you squished a pea between your finger, that's what it felt like behind my left eye. And before I could really think about what that meant, I looked down at the medication that I previously had known what I was doing, and I couldn't read the label, and I had no idea what was holding my hand. Everything turns purple, and I look up. The room is spinning like a whirlpool of purple. And I have no idea what's going on. I look up at the surgeon. Again, I've been working with this guy for 7 years. I played tennis with him. I mean, yeah, he was a friend of mine. I had no idea what his name was. I could not come up. And he looked like a big purple blob with a mustache, And so I called him Dr. Barney because that's the only, from the kid's character. I said, Dr. Barney, listen, I know what you need me to give this. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what to do with it. I was able to say that. And half my face is drooping as I'm saying this. And so everyone in the OR knows, or at least thought they knew what this meant. And, I mean, I was having a stroke or an aneurysm popped, or I was likely going to die within minutes. I mean, when something like that happens, it's pretty, pop and lots of, so I didn't know what was going on. At that point, I lose my ability to maintain my balance. I fall to the ground. I'm on my knees. I can't open my eyes because the room is spinning. I mean, I'm about to throw up. I cannot even, I can't open my eye. I can't think. I don't know what's happening. And all I feel is this shaking. And the surgeon had walked around the table to me on the ground. He's shaking me awake. Dr. Lee, can you wake this patient up? And I'm like, I think so. And I still can't open my eyes. On my knees, I'm fumbling around for all the dials. I'm getting everything ready. And I don't know. I mean, luckily, the case was almost done, and I had prepared for this patient to wake up before. So everything had been done. Most of it had been done, luckily, because I would not have been able to, if anything had gone wrong or if anything was misplaced, I probably would have been cooked. But I got the patient breathing and ready for the recovery room. And there were literally 2 gurneys, one for the patient to go to the recovery room and one for me to go to the ER. And I spent the next 16 hours in the emergency room trying to figure out what was going on. The MRI was broken in my hospital, so I had to go to a different hospital. They didn't have the right machines, so they ended up doing a different test, an MRA. It's a technical term. But it only looks at the vessels because they were worried about, did I have a stroke? Did I pop an aneurysm? Something that's going to kill me within minutes. They looked for and they couldn't find it. So I actually left the ER that day after about almost an entire day. It was a 16-hour day there. I left without a clear answer. And it took another year. And my personal family physician, who is very meticulous and will hunt everything down, he actually sent off every lab known to man. And he got one hit, and it was a pituitary tumor. That was how I was introduced to my tumor. Very abruptly and very, very rapidly. Yes.
Right. So, and take us through, you were married with kids. So take us through a little bit of the family dynamic at the time.
Okay. So when this first happened and during the year it took to diagnose me, again, we had no idea what was wrong with me. The first 2 or 3 months afterwards, I was near catatonic. I spoke like this, and I mean, loud noises would set me off. I couldn't I could barely wake up. I could barely do anything in a day. And after about 3 months, I got a little better, and I was still feeling like, like terrible. Mental fog, like you can't imagine. I was trying to get myself around, and I was okay driving. I was okay doing everything. It was very strange. I knew what I had known before, like all my knowledge was still there, but my ability to process new information, I would get lost. I didn't know where I was. I would have to literally look around as I'm driving. I'm like, okay, I'm going west. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. Okay, I'm headed home. I would have to deduce what I was doing. And, after a while, I really felt like my life was disappearing. My wife was a cosmetic dermatologist, and at this point, we had worked her up where her practice was growing, and she was extremely busy. So she was gone. My kids were in school, and here I was basically left alone to just sit there, stare at a wall until I got my diagnosis. So. It was very frustrating. It was, how would I describe it? I felt useless and helpless.
Right.
And especially since for that year, I didn't know what was going on. And I got to tell you, the day that my doctor sent that test off, it said, okay, we need to do an MRI. We got to see how big this thing is. I suspect you have a tumor. We went to the MRI. We talked to the radiologist, and it's always a bad sign when the radiologist calls you into the room. Like usually you get a picture taken, you go home, and they call you 2 weeks later. As I was dressing to leave, the radiologist comes in and said, can I talk to you? Right then, my wife and I knew, okay, this is something real.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 39, and I'm 53 now. And this whole ordeal was, well, put it this way. I'm still dealing with some of the after effects of that, and another injury that I sustained while recovering from this brain tumor. So
the anesthesiologist came in and said to you, so you and your wife, Dr. Tess,
yes.
were like, okay. Exactly. And so then take us through that.
So I walk into the room, and all of the films are up on the light boxes, and you could see it from across the room. She had circled a little mass. Well, it wasn't little. It was about the size of a walnut. Your pituitary is supposed to be the size of a pea, but mine was about the size of a walnut. It was pushing on my optic nerve. I had lost some vision in my right field of vision that I hadn't noticed, and it was pushing on other brain structures and tugging on the meninges of the brain. And all of that means, the brain doesn't work and you're in pain. That's basically what that meant. And my wife and I looked at each other. And I got to be honest, at first, the first feeling I had was relief.
Right.
It was like, yeah, awesome. There's a reason for the way I feel. There's a reason for my dysfunction. There's a reason for why I'm irritable and not capable of doing what I normally was able to do. But that only lasted for like 3 seconds. It was like a 3-second elation. And then my wife and I just looked at each other, and we just broke down crying. Like, now that we know, what do we do? There's this thing in my head that's affecting the way I can even function. I literally, I couldn't do anything. Like, I was good for one good thought a day. My kids would come home, and I used to just, and I still could. I did help them with their homework. It's interesting. Everything I knew was there. It's just, processing new information was just almost impossible. But that's the day we found out that I had brain tumor.
Right. And then I want to say, but I know your story, that like, okay, from there, it was like, okay, we're going to, get this taken care of. We're going to get you healthy, and we're going to start all the processes.
That wasn't right away. I mean, that was, okay, so when you first find out about something like this, I got to be honest with you, I went through a big depression, a huge depression, probably 3 to 6 months of just, the way I would describe it is this. I imagined my life up until that point, and I said, okay, I got married. I went to Yale. I got a medical degree. I got married. I have 2 kids. Check, check, check. I'm done. I can leave this earth. I can let go and, feel good that I had lived a full life. I mean, that these were thoughts going in my head.
Right.
And one of the appointments that I had with my my neurologist at the time, and she was trying to be encouraging. She told me, listen, this thing isn't going to kill you. We have you on chemotherapy. They got me on the right chemotherapy, which is a whole nother story. Oh my, I thought I felt bad before. Then with the chemo, like I was, my upside down world was turned sideways at that point. But she said, once we get this under control, this isn't life threatening. If you're healthy and you look like you are, you're going to live another 50 years. And she was trying to be encouraging. Again, she was trying to lift my spirits up. But when I heard that, all I could think of was, I cannot live 50 years like this. I refuse. This is not a life. This is, I mean, just waking up, trying to even eat in the morning was such a chore. Like heating up my breakfast in the morning took so many, you don't understand how many steps there are to just opening the refrigerator. That's painful. I can't think of looking around for something, finding the microwave, opening it up, figuring out how long to heat. I mean, you do this without thinking, but man, this was a chore every morning for me. So I couldn't imagine living another 50 years like this.
No. And also being the high achiever that we've heard you are. I want the listeners to really think about this. As you just said, making breakfast. And this is why the brain is so fascinating. This is why, the work that I do in the dyslexic world, I'm always so fascinated to hear each story of a different dyslexic about how they see, how they function and see, and how a lot of things that we all take for granted, as you just said, heating up your food, right? You're a doctor, you went to Stanford. You shouldn't even have to think about that. But because of your injury, you had to go through the steps. And that is why so many of us in this world, I think, don't appreciate when people struggle, because it's just like, oh, well, it's easy for us. This can't be hard. So take us through. I mean, you have 2 young kids, which is also, kids in themselves can be frustrating in their stages. You have a wife that is holding it together with kids and then trying to help you and be patient with you. And you're aware of others around you and aware that this is taking you longer. So you're frustrated with yourself. So take us through a little bit of that.
First of all, I have to say that my kids were young when this first started to happen. My daughter was 15, 14, and my son was 7. But let me put it this way. They grew up fast. They took up the slack. They became responsible, and they became adults really quickly. And I applaud them for that. But I also apologize for that, because they were forced into it. But yeah, let's go back to how I first felt when this happened. I was a highly functional person before. I was working 96 hours a week. I could work 36 hours in a row, come home and still deal with the family. And to go from that so everyone in this life, everyone out there, a certain part of your identity, is a certain part of who you feel or who you are, is embedded in what you're doing. And for me as a physician, I think that made up a larger percentage in my head of who I thought I was. I'm a Stanford trained doctor. I'm an anesthesiologist. I drive a nice car. I have, high powered, all these check marks. And so I thought that's who I was. And when that was taken from me, I realized that it can go like that. That's not who you are. Those are little, tags, those little placeholders and names that you've added to your resume that make you feel better about yourself. But that certainly isn't who you are. And when I was faced with who I really was at the time, I'll put it this way. You wouldn't have liked me as much if you knew me back then. You would not have liked me as much, because I knew where I was in life. And I think I let that speak for me. And so, I really looked at that, and I had to work at it. And that's one of the things I said, bringing myself back to a life worth living. Because if I lived the same life in that capacity, it wouldn't have been worth living.
And I have to commend you and applaud you for saying that, because there's so many people that wouldn't acknowledge, you know what? Those things meant something to me, because that's what I thought was important. That's what I thought a life worth living. That's what I thought I wanted. And for you to really strip yourself down. I mean, that's, whether you believe in the God or God or the universe, you had a bigger purpose in life and you weren't seeing it. So the bigger, higher powers were like, guess what, Dr. Lee? we're going to turn your life upside down because you have more to share. You're going to share who you are from the depths instead of just the surface. So thank you for sharing that, because I know that is not easy to say. I don't think I really liked who I was before. And now I've done this work, and for your kids to see that, though, you are now raising kids that, as you said, sorry that they had to see that. That's their path, because they're going to do big things in life, because they're going to say, you know what? We face adversity. I saw my dad basically be this person that I didn't recognize, right? Because we were living this life, and now this is who he is. And I'm sure they are so proud of you.
My family, and here's the other thing that I will stress. My relationships before, I mean, I had them, but I'll be honest, I didn't go out of my way to put any energy or effort into it. It was just a byproduct. I went to work, I came home, and if they were there, I interacted with them. If they weren't, I didn't. But this really changed the way I thought about my relationships. I mean, if I were to say, look, I need to get better, I need to improve my life, I have 50 years to get better, what's the reason? There was no reason. To be a doctor again was the only reason for me, but I couldn't even, I can't even make breakfast, right? How am I going to take care of a patient? Like, I couldn't even imagine coming back to being a doctor again. That was unfathomable to me. So, what was left? If I had this life, I didn't really have anybody that I felt close to. I know I had people close to me, but this is how I felt, because this is real, because I hadn't spent any time on any of that. So 50 years of life remaining, I said, you know what? I'm at least I'm going to call my dad. I literally, before this, I'd spoken to my dad maybe once every 2 or 3 months, and we'd just say what's going on in our lives. And our conversations were embarrassingly and entertainingly short. My wife would always make fun of me. You're already done with, literally 30 seconds. Like, Dad, how you doing? Hey, kid's graduating, he did great, whatever. And see you later. Boom. That's our conversation. And after every one of those conversations, I'll be honest, I had a neutral feeling about my father. He just is there. That's it. One day I decided, you know what? I am going to tell him something. After one of our 30-second conversations, I said, Dad, I've been through, and I'm going through now something not necessarily life-threatening, but it has made me contemplated the quality and the value of my life. And I just wanted to say that, Dad, I love you as a father, and that as a son, I hope I make you proud. You don't understand. We never say things like this. We never. It's just, we're very stoic. Don't like to show our emotions, especially my father. And when I said that, he couldn't even speak. A sound came out of him that I've never heard from him, and I try not to imitate in public because he's embarrassed by this sound. But it was a blurt, almost a cry.
Yeah.
And it came out, and 3 seconds later, I heard him hung up. Like, he couldn't even get any words out.
Right.
But after that, I have to say that my feeling toward my father, that background music that's playing when you're not talking to him, was good, happy music as opposed to silence. So that changed our relationship. Now when I call, my mom tells me, I know it's you when you call, because Dad is always in a good mood afterwards. He's singing and smiling. So I know it makes a difference, even though our conversations are still only 30 seconds. They still are not very meaningful in that way, but has made all the difference. And when I started that, I realized, you know what? I have to start working on the relationship with my wife, with my kids. It became intentional, it became purposeful, and it was always designed. Every interaction was designed to make sure they knew that I was happy they were in my life.
Okay. So I could totally bawl and cry because that's what life is about. That's what happiness is. That's what a fulfilled life is. That's what a life, and all of that to me stemmed from you being curious, right? What if I do this? What if I do that? And you broke that, generational, we don't talk about our feelings, because so many, of certain cultures, right? You don't do this. My husband's Irish German. In the German, you did not talk about mine, Irish Italian. So there was parts that were, but parts that are not. You just didn't talk about feelings. And I think that is one thing, as people will say that different generations, that we know how important it is for us to tell our kids, you're seen and heard. I remember so much when my kids were little, I'd be like, I want to know your opinion on this. And they would be like, oh, and we would have conversations like, this is how I'm going to set up our family structure, but I would love to know what you guys think. It doesn't mean that I'm going to say, okay, yes, we can have a romper room and a free for all, but I want to know what your thoughts are, because your thoughts and who you are, you're wise and you're smart and your opinion matters. It's not just like you're a kid. You don't be seen and heard. You guys are actually you probably can see the way we're doing things better than we're doing it, because we have all this other stuff clouded in our head. So I love so much that you did that with your dad and your family.
And you give me too much credit. You said it was because of my curiosity. It was out of desperation, frankly. It was, I needed to find something in my life that was worth, well, let's put it this way. If you're trying to mow your backyard, that's a certain amount of energy, and you got to get a certain amount of motivation to go and mow your backyard. But when you're looking at improving your life, changing your lifestyle, and working on your health from that perspective, that was so much bigger of a task. Like the amount of motivation that you need for that is enormous. And so, you need something meaningful. You need something that actually matters to you. And I said, if I'm going to come back, if I'm going to be a human being again, what is a human being without their family? What is a human being without? It was because I had so much time to think. Like my brain didn't even work that well, but I just had, so I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't turn on the TV. Like I can't explain enough how I couldn't watch TV because it took too many steps to turn it on and even find a channel that you like. We have so many channels now. Like I literally was like, I wish I only had 3 channels, like in the old days, you just turn it on, it worked. So I stopped watching TV. Plot lines would confuse me anyway. So all I did was think. And I'm like, you know what? Without all this clutter, without TV, news, email, life is really, at first I was like, I'm so bored. Like, what am I going to do with my day? Like, this is terrible. Like, I was the kind of person, if I had 10 minutes, I'd be watching TV. I'd find something on TV. No, but I couldn't. So I'm sitting there staring at myself in the mirror, sometimes staring at a wall. And I said, no, let's start over. What is really important to me? And one by one, I started clicking them off. The most important thing to me was family. I said, if I don't have a family with me when I come out of this, I'll be alone. If I don't have the support, if I don't have this is the first time I really thought about this. And it's like, my children it's me. It's my DNA being continued in this world. And if I send my DNA out there naked and unarmed, I'm not doing myself any favors. Like I'm dying, yes, but so is my line. And so I really thought about this. Why is this important? It's because we have to love ourselves. It's our own DNA. It's us living in the future. And all of this just started clicking again. Like, we don't have time to think about this normally. We're going to our jobs. We're on the highway. We're late. We're trying to get lunch. We don't have time to stop and think, why am I doing this? And that's what I had. That was a luxury that I had.
But that's curiosity. You let your mind go and you let your mind think, okay, what if I don't do this? What if I don't? And that's curiosity to me. And that's what I think so many people don't allow themselves, because we don't stop and think enough. Just like you said, we don't let our brains think, well, what if, or what kind of life do I want? Well, how do I want my kids to go out in this world? You had the time to do that. Unfortunately, it wasn't time that you chose to do, but you did it. And you, instead of just sitting there and feeling, I'm sure there was times where you felt very sorry for yourself. Why me? Why is this happening? Right? But you also did something with it. So I would love to then know, when you decided to write Unbroken. Like, when did that come about?
So let me fast forward. I alluded to another physical illness that I had dealt with, that I had to deal with it. So 3 or 4 years into my brain recovery, I finished chemo. That took about 1.5 years. And once I was done with that, they have me on low dose chemo now because it's not operable. I'm going to keep it there, but it's shrunk to the point where it's not causing any problems, and it's going to stay like that. Once I got there, I started the long process of recovery. I mean, a quick story. The same doctor I went back at this point, she said, you're cured. You don't need to see me anymore. Go on with your life. And and again, she was trying to be encouraging, but I said, listen, you say that I'm cured, but I still can't make it to your office. I still don't remember where your office is. I'm going to leave here and get in my car, and I won't be able to figure out how to get out of your parking lot. It takes me when does the old James come back? And she literally did this. She put her hand on my shoulder. She said, "Oh, honey, you're lucky to be alive. Right now you've got to concentrate on your new life. Welcome to your new normal."
Oh my gosh.
And again, she was trying to be consoling and helpful, but I was even more depressed at that point. I'm like, oh my, this is how you're gonna leave me? This is me cured? I thought at the end of my chemo I was gonna be back to being a doctor again. Boom. No, it was another 1.5 years, 2 years of working at it. I mean, I'm exercising my brain every day. And to go quickly, I just went back to my biochemistry and realized I needed to give my brain the right food. So I changed my diet. I changed my whole regimen to get the nutrients up to my brain. I started an exercise routine. So 3 years into it, I'm feeling better. I'm still nowhere near normal. Don't get me wrong, but I'm feeling better. I'm able to operate. And my family and I decided to go out for dinner. This is one of the first times we're all going to go out to dinner, kind of carefree. Most of the times you're going out because you need to find food or whatever. No, we're going to make a conscious effort. We're going to go as a family. We're going to enjoy dinner. So we go to one of our favorite Chinese restaurants that we used to always go to. And at the end of dinner, you get your fortune cookie. Everyone's reading it and laughing. I open mine up and I'm bawling. I'm just crying. My family's looking at me like, what's wrong? My fortune said, "How happy is the man who has everything taken away and given half back?"
Oh my gosh.
And I'm reading this I was just so happy to be where I was because I had spent the last 3 years just in a mental fog that so dense that I didn't even know the other side. And here I was enjoying dinner and I looked at my wife and I said, "I truly am happy. Like this really does mean something to me." Little did I know that was not a lesson for me in the past. It's a lesson for me in the future. Because shortly thereafter, April of 2015, I'm again feeling good enough to visit family. I'm going to Korea to visit family, lifting luggage. Lift one piece of luggage wrong, and I herniate 2 discs in my neck, crushing my spinal cord. So I'd spent the last 3.5, 4 years without a brain, and now the next 3 to 4 years without a functioning body. Like now my spinal cord is crushed. I can't move. I am now debilitated to the point where I am in bed for almost 2 years staring at a ceiling, 22 hours out of every day, just staring at the ceiling. Now I couldn't watch TV because of my neck. Before I couldn't watch TV because so I spent a good decade without really much TV, email, and nothing. So everything that I had learned now, I had to start over again. But I will say one thing. It's much better to have a brain tumor than it is a neck injury. Because the brain tumor, I don't remember much of what happened to me. I remember that I was depressed. I remember that it was hard, but it's kind of all fogged. Guess what? I remember almost every second of that spinal cord injury sitting there in pain. Like that was true imprisonment. And I just thought back to that fortune cookie. And I said, you know what? Once this is over, I am going to appreciate my life like I've never before. And I am here to tell you that's what I'm doing. Every day is so much better now than when I was perfectly healthy. I can't explain it. I don't know why. But I appreciate every morning that I'm awake now. Every time that my body works, every time that I can walk down the stairs, I'm like, life is good.
Yeah. And today You are recording right before you're going. Tell us where you're going this afternoon.
Okay, so and one of my friends put it perfectly. He said, "Man, you are living the parent's dream right now." I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "Thank you for saying that," because my oldest daughter is graduating medical school today. We're as soon as we're done here, we're going to pack up. We're going to head up there. My wife and I are going to be involved in the hooding process, where they take the hood and put it on her, and she gets hooded today. She has a service tomorrow, and she gets her diploma on Sunday. So it's going to be just a perfect weekend. I can't tell you how much. Like when I was looking forward to the future, I was thinking about all these milestones that I wanted to hit. You know, I wanted to see my son graduate high school. I wanted to see my daughter graduate college. I wanted to see my 50th birthday. I'm 53. So her graduating med school wasn't even on that list. You see what I'm saying? I couldn't see that far into the future.
Right.
And, I can't tell you enough what that means. And, I feel like I'm graduating today. You know, that's what it means to me.
Well, and you gave her, because this is all probably instead of like, as you started the podcast, right? You said you went to medical school because your parents were both doctors and that's what you thought your journey was. So now your daughter has 2 doctor parents, but she's going into it as well, but in a completely different mindset, I am sure, because she saw what you went through and she's going to live a purposeful life because of what you were able to. I mean, I want people just to sit and think about this. So James just took us through this brain tumor and then a spinal cord injury. When we wake up and we think we have bad days, and this is sometimes what people will say, like, "Oh, my life is not as bad as someone else," right? But when our lives happen to us and we're in struggle, it is our struggle, so it is as bad as it's going to be. I do truly believe that God gives us what we can handle. Not everyone can handle what James went through, like hands down. But there's a reason why you went through everything you're doing and that you're sitting here today, and then you're going to be able to share it in this book that you were like, I never thought I'd be an author. And it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful memoir, but there's so many lessons in it. There's so much of your story, but your voice and what you have learned that you then share with the masses. And that's why, I think it's a beautiful thing that you are like, I'm pivoting and doing this.
Thank you. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that I wrote this book. Me, I didn't. It's not a ghostwriter. It's not someone that paid to help write me. No, I wrote this book. I felt strongly that it needed to be in my voice. And really, I wanted to write this book for one reason, and it was for me.
Right.
It was for me to get out. The conversation that instigated this was a well-meaning friend of mine. I was talking to his wife, and she asked what I was going through at the time, and I said, "Listen, I had just finished this series of illnesses, and the worst part I thought was the 2 years where I was with the neck injury, I was stuck in bed and I couldn't move it because I was in so much pain." And she looked at me and she said, I swear to God, I was so like, I couldn't even think. Like, she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, so you got to take it easy for 2 years." And I was like, "I don't think you understand." I was like, "I don't think anyone could understand." So I'm like, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to put down on paper just how hard it was for me. And, my brother, my brother was one of the first people to read this book. And again, my brother, he knew what I had gone through. He knew the treatments that I had undergone. And when he read this book, he told me, he's like, "Bro, I had no idea." Like, no idea. So I think that was that to me changed everything. When he understood, I was like, it was worth writing the book.
Well, and I think that's what's so important. People can hear. This is what I always think, like listening and hearing and thinking and all these things. People can hear you and they can say, "Oh, okay, great, great, great." But when they're processing in a different way by reading your story and then putting themselves in your shoes, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe I had like the flu when I was in bed one day and that sucked. 2 years.
2 years.
And pain
Pain like you can't imagine. when you have a spinal cord compression, I had my discs were actually like they had ruptured and squirted and compressed that juice, the nucleosis pulposus that comes out. It had pressed on my spinal cord. So I mean, any position was pretty much unbearable, but certain positions would be agonizing. And as a matter of fact, if I was in a car accident or if something happened to my neck where it's unnaturally tilted, I would have been paralyzed. They would have crushed my spinal cord. That's how much pressure was on my spinal cord. But yeah, I went to a masseuse yesterday and she was working on some of my knots and she would ask how painful is that? And I said, oh, it's 1 or 2, 3, whatever. Afterwards, she said, you have an enormous pain tolerance because most people would be crying and screaming off the table. I said, no, you don't understand.
You understand, yeah. You don't understand what I went through. And it's an interesting thing because people will say like pain, I've had 3 kids. And so sometimes I'll always be like, you know what? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I had a child. So there's there's different levels to pain, but the pain that you went through day in and day out for years. I mean, that also mentally, here's a question that I'm very curious about. Do you think that strengthened your brain and helped your brain heal faster?
I'll tell you what helped was the realization. Okay. Up until that point, and we're all guilty of this because it's just hardwired into us. Up until that point, pain, anxiety, fear, anger, we're all the same. Like if you hit your thumb with a hammer, you're going to feel pain. Are you angry that you hit your thumb? Yeah. Are you anxious that it might not heal? Yeah. Are you fearful that it's going to bleed? Yeah. All these things are just boom. It's just automatic. What I realized about pain, because my pain was not as a result of injury or something that I did wrong, because that teaches you something, right? Don't hit your thumb again. My pain was there just constantly. It wasn't a result of anything. It was a result of illness, of course, but not anything that I was directly doing. So there was no lesson to be learned. So I realized I can detach anxiety and anger and fear from that. So whenever I felt pain, I said, it's just part of the disease process. I didn't get angry anymore. Why me? I didn't get anxious. Is it ever going to go away? Oh my gosh, this is terrible. No, I said, you know what? This has been with me for a year. It's going to be with me until I'm healed. I don't know when that is. And again, I put myself up. Nature's time. I call it nature's time. Because up until that point, it was the watch that told me what time it was. You know what? That has nothing to do with your body. Your body's on nature's time. I was on a day-to-day, a week-to-week, a month. You know what? Maybe a month from now, I'm going to be better. And that was hard to measure on a watch. And so I stopped wearing a watch. It didn't matter to me.
Right. No, so what were you in this whole time? And even now, do you have fear that something could happen again?
Oh, yeah.
Or
But here's, okay. Let me finish. So when you first feel pain, and even when I first feel pain now, again, the reaction, the instinct is still the same. You feel pain, you feel anger, boom, 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 all the way, just all of it. But now I realize that's happening to me. And I say, you know what? I'm going to spend the least amount of time in this state as possible. Because when I was in that situation, when I was in that state, every second, if I was in pain and you made it worse, that was even worse agony. Every second was just now my life has been made worse. So I realized I can save myself a lot of energy, a lot of agony, a lot of effort if I just tell myself this pain is going to be here. It has nothing to do with, I don't have to be angry at it. I don't have to be angry at God. I don't have to be angry at nature. It just is. And so what that has taught me is to detach. Like I'm so much, even on the highway now, like if someone cut me off before, oh man, I'd be angry at him. I'd be honking and I'd be upset the whole way to the hospital until I start my cases. Right now, I'm just like, yeah, he's probably in a hurry. I'm not, right. I don't need this. I don't need to be anywhere and I don't need the aggravation.
Change your mindset.
Yeah. And in this didn't happen overnight. I want to stress this was months of work. It's sort of like a muscle, like at the beginning, it was very easy to lose your temper. It's very easy because that happens. And so you feel justified, like I need to be angry. No, to change that while it's happening, it takes a lot of effort. So no, I can't be angry. I shouldn't be angry. There's no reason to be angry. At first, that whole conversation with yourself takes minutes, hours. Now it's like a couple seconds. I'm like, no, you don't need to be angry. Let's move on. Boom. It's, so I use the snowflake analogy. If I say snowflake, you can't help but think of a snowflake. So I just give myself something else to think about. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, I'm going to think about ice cream. Let's go get some ice cream. I immediately think of something else. It's like I treat myself like a little kid, like that's kind of what you have to do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, Dr. Lee, I so appreciate you joining Don't Die Curious and sharing your story. And so again, Unbroken, a doctor's journey back to a life worth living will be out when this episode is here. You can find it in all the places. Dr. Lee, where's a great place people can follow you? Is it LinkedIn, website?
I do. It's embarrassing. Because of what I'd gone through, this whole internet and, Facebook, all that, this all happened while I was in my room. So I'm embarrassing bad at social media. I'm
not embarrassing, no.
Email. But I do have an Instagram link at the official Dr. James Lee. I will promise I'm going to start using it more as the book comes out. Yeah, as I want to. Here's the way I'd see it. Right now, I've been working on the connection with my family and my close friends, and I want to expand that. I realize that connection is what it's all about in this world. We are social beings. We are designed to interact with other people. As a matter of fact, I had so little energy and so little life that anytime I did interact with a person, anybody else, even if it was a barista, that was it. It was that made my day, and I realized this is what we need. And it only works if you smile and you're happy with that barista. If you're upset with her about your coffee or whatever it is, him or her, then you've ruined your day. It's not because of the coffee. It's because of how you reacted to it. And that's what I realized.
I love that. Yeah. And there'll be show notes. There'll be people being able to connect to you. But again, thank you so much for joining Don't Die Curious. You guys, you know what I say every single time: like, rate, review, and share, because you don't know who needs to hear this story. We'll see you for the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Don't Die Curious. If this episode sparked a question, leave a review and share it with a friend. You want to connect or suggest a topic? Just look me up. I am Juliet Hahn on Instagram and LinkedIn. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking those questions. You don't know where it's going to lead you.